Okay, so today we're diving into the world of kidney transplants,
Oh, yeah?
specifically HLA compatibility.
Right.
It's like, you know how they always say it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to figure out how scientists are trying to make those matches more like finding a key for its lock.
Yeah, it's a field with incredibly high stakes, and these advancements have the potential to really change people's lives who are on the waiting list.
Absolutely. And the research we're diving into really lays it all out, and it starts by just underlining just how high those stakes are.
Right.
You see, even with all the incredible medical advancements over the years, the average kidney transplant only lasts about 11 years.
Wow.
Think about that for a second.
Yeah,
It really underscores the need for improvements.
it does. And what a lot of people don't realize is that the wait list for a kidney is long, like incredibly long.
Mm.
And one of the reasons why it's so long is because people need multiple transplants in their lifetime.
Wow, I did not realize that was that common.
Hmm.
Okay, so it's not just a one and done situation for a lot of people,
Right.
which makes me wonder, what is it that's causing these transplants to fail? Is it simply that the matching system that we have, this HLA, this human leukocyte antigen matching, is it flawed?
So that's a great question, and the answer is a bit nuanced.
Okay.
It's not that the system is inherently bad.
Okay.
Think of it this way. Imagine trying to compare two books solely based on their chapter titles.
Okay.
You might get a general sense of whether they're in the same ballpark,
Yeah.
but you'd miss all the details, the story within each chapter.
Okay, I think I see where you're going with this.
Right.
Yeah.
HLA matching is similar.
Okay.
It looks for a general match between the donor and recipient, kind of like comparing those chapter titles.
Right.
But what it's missing are the nuances, the smaller details within each HLA antigen.
Okay.
And these details are called eplets.
Okay.
And they're crucial because they're what can actually trigger the immune system to attack a donated organ.
So using the book analogy, if HLA antigens are like chapter titles, then eplets are the sentences within those chapters, the part that really tells the story.
Exactly.
Okay.
And those individual sentences, those eplets, they're what we need to be looking at to get a truly accurate picture of compatibility.
Right.
Because when those eplets don't align, that's when you increase the risk of rejection.
This is starting to feel a lot bigger than just numbers on a page.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about real people waiting for a chance at a healthier life.
Absolutely. And that's why this research is so crucial.
Yeah.
It's not just about identifying the limitations of the current system. It's about searching for solutions.
Right.
Solutions like molecular matching, which feels like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Right. It's like we're entering a whole new era of transplantation.
Yeah.
We're moving from this like broad overview to this close-up, like high-definition analysis.
Yeah.
But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's make sure we're all on the same page here.
Okay.
You listening.
Yeah.
So we understand the problem now.
Yep.
Traditional HLA matching, while useful,
Yeah.
has its limitations.
It does.
And while it's been the cornerstone of transplantation for years, it's clear that scientists are determined to find ways to improve it,
Right.
to give patients the best possible chance at a longer, healthier life.
Absolutely.
And that's where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
But you'll have to wait until part 2 to find out how. So we left off talking about molecular matching
Yeah.
and how it's like this whole new frontier in transplantation, like trading in our magnifying glass for a super high-powered microscope.
Exactly.
So walk me through this a little bit.
Okay.
The research paper mentions 2 main approaches to this molecular matching.
Right.
One is called eplet mismatch load, which you kind of already touched on a little bit with the whole book analogy thing.
Yeah. So remember how we were talking about those eplets being like the crucial little details within each HLA antigen?
Yeah.
Well, eplet mismatch load is all about counting the differences in those eplets between the donor and the recipient.
Right.
So the fewer mismatches there are, the better the potential for a successful transplant.
Okay.
It's a much more precise way of assessing compatibility than just that traditional HLA matching.
So instead of just saying, yes, it's a match or no, it's not, we can actually say, this is how good of a match it is.
Exactly. We're going from a blurry picture to a very clear image.
Yeah.
And seeing those finer details
Mm-hmm.
can make all the difference when it comes to long-term transplant success.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's eplet mismatch load. Got it.
Right.
Now, there's another approach that the article talks about
Right.
called the PIRCHE-II score.
Yes.
What is that all about?
So this is where it gets even more fascinating, because the PIRCHE-II score goes a step further than just looking at those eplet mismatches.
Okay.
It actually takes into account your unique immune system
Oh, wow.
and predicts how it might react to a specific donor organ.
So it's like a personalized risk assessment.
Exactly. It analyzes these tiny, tiny little fragments from the donor's HLA.
Okay.
They're called peptides.
Right.
And it uses this really sophisticated algorithm to predict whether your body might see them as a threat or not.
Wow.
And so that's what we call indirect allorecognition,
Okay.
where your immune system is basically recognizing those HLA molecules from the donor as being foreign.
Gotcha.
And that can be a major, major player in transplant rejection.
This is getting incredibly complex,
Yeah.
but in a good way.
In a good way?
It seems like these molecular matching techniques have the potential to like completely revolutionize transplantation as we know it.
Right.
But I have to ask,
Yeah.
are we at a point where we can like use this technology for every single person on the transplant waiting list?
You know, not just yet, unfortunately.
Okay.
And so while the science is so incredibly promising, there are still some hurdles that we have to overcome.
Okay.
One of the biggest challenges is the technology itself.
Okay.
So high-resolution HLA genotyping,
Right?
which is essential for this molecular matching, it's very data-intensive.
I see.
So even though we have the knowledge, we have the tools, it's not quite ready for prime time in every single case.
So it was like, even though we have the knowledge and the tools to do this, it's not quite fast enough yet to really be rolled out on a larger scale.
Right? Think of it like trying to read a whole library of books in a single day.
Okay.
Yeah, we're getting faster, we're getting more efficient,
Yeah.
but it's still a work in progress.
Right.
And plus there are logistical things too.
Yep.
Like imagine having to completely change the system that we use to determine who gets an organ and when.
Right.
Right. That
What?
takes careful planning
Yeah.
and a lot more research to make sure that it's implemented fairly
Yeah.
and doesn't accidentally give a disadvantage to certain groups of people.
Right. We don't want to create a system that unintentionally creates more problems than it solves.
Exactly.
So where does that leave us?
Yeah.
Is all this amazing research just going to sit on a shelf until the technology catches up?
No, not at all.
Okay.
And while widespread use for deceased donor transplants might be a little ways off, there are some really exciting applications of molecular matching that are already making a really big difference,
Okay.
and some that are much closer than you might think.
Well, now you've got me on the edge of my seat. I can't wait to hear about how this is being used right now to help people in need of a life-saving transplant. So we talked about the potential and some of the roadblocks of getting molecular matching up and running for, every transplant.
Right.
But I'm curious about those applications you mentioned,
Yeah.
the ones that are already making a difference or are sort of just on the horizon.
Right.
What can molecular matching do for us, like right now?
So one area where it's already shining is in living organ donation.
Okay.
And those paired exchange programs.
You mean those programs where, like, you have a willing donor, but they're not a match for their loved one. And so they swap with another donor-recipient pair.
Exactly. And the bigger that pool of donors and recipients,
Right.
the better the chances of finding those really optimal matches.
Yeah.
And that's where programs like the National Kidney Registry, the NKR,
Yeah.
they come in.
Mhm.
They've created this massive network,
Yeah.
and they're actually using an algorithm based on eplet mismatch load.
They're using it right now.
Yeah,
Wow, that's incredible.
it is, and they call it Kidney for Life.
Okay.
And it really focuses in on these crucial eplet mismatches at specific HLA genes.
Mm-hmm.
And they've already facilitated over 120 transplants using this approach.
Wow.
And the results are really promising.
So it's not just theoretical, like it's actually helping people.
It's actually happening.
Get these life-saving transplants right now.
It is.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and even for deceased donor transplants,
Yeah.
where we're still working on all those technological hurdles,
Right.
molecular matching can be so informative.
Okay.
Like imagine this. A doctor is reviewing potential organs for their patient.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And right alongside the usual information, they also see this molecular mismatch score.
So even if it doesn't completely change who gets the organ,
Right.
it gives doctors another another tool,
In
a
fact,
more precise tool
Yeah.
to figure out the best possible match for their patient.
yeah, it's about adding that layer of information,
Yeah.
a more refined understanding of compatibility to those decisions.
Absolutely.
And And here's another area where I think molecular matching can have a big impact. Personalizing immunosuppression.
So you mean like those anti-rejection drugs that people have to take long term?
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
those are essential, but they come with a whole bunch of side effects.
Of course.
Right. So imagine if we could identify those low-risk matches.
Yeah.
Using molecular matching, we could potentially adjust the dosage of those medications
Okay.
to minimize those side effects.
That would be huge.
It really would.
Just improving their quality of life significantly.
Yeah, and on the flip side,
Yeah.
for those patients who are maybe considered a little bit higher risk,
Right.
even if it's a good match,
Yeah.
molecular insights could mean more frequent monitoring
Okay.
to catch any potential issues really early on.
So it's not just about who gets the organ, it's about how we take care of that patient and their transplant long term
Exactly.
to make sure that it's as successful as it can possibly be.
It's about using every bit of information to give each patient the best chance
I love that.
at a healthier future.
That's a perfect note to end on, I think.
Yeah.
This whole deep dive has just been so eye-opening.
It's incredible, isn't it?
We went from those limitations of these traditional methods to the incredible promise of molecular matching and beyond.
It really is amazing.
And for you listening, as research progresses, as the technology gets faster, it really begs the question, how will our understanding of the human body and our ability to personalize medicine continue to shape the future of organ transplantation?